My wife's yoga pants cost more than my work boots, but she won't cook my kid a decent meal. That's the first thing you need to understand about Lana Calloway. Everything's about appearances, nothing about substance. I'm Trent Calloway, 42 years old, fire inspector for the city of Millbrook. It's honest work, pays the bills, keeps food on the table. My hands are calloused, my back aches most mornings, and I drive a 10-year-old Ford pickup that rattles like a paint can full of screws. But I show up every day, do my job, and come home to what I thought was my family. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel, so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Lana's 39, teaches dance classes part-time at some fancy studio downtown. She spends more time taking selfies in her leotards than actually teaching kids how to pirouette. Her Instagram feed looks like a fitness magazine, all posed shots and motivational quotes about quote seekers and quote CD1. What it doesn't show is how she treats my daughter Becca. Becca's 13, quiet as a church mouse, and has asthma that flares up when she gets stressed. She's not Lana's biological kid. That honor belongs to my ex-wife, who passed away in a car accident 5 years ago. Lana came into our lives 2 years later, all smiles and promises about being a quote two. Turns out her definition of family doesn't include actually caring about the kid who came with the package. "Trent, can you pick up dinner?" Lana called from the living room where she was sprawled on our beige sectional, scrolling through her phone. I'm exhausted from teaching. Teaching 2 classes, I wanted to say. 2 45-minute classes to suburban moms who think they're the next prima ballerina. Instead, I grabbed my keys. Quote, 5-5. Quote. I glanced at Becca, who was sitting at the kitchen table working on homework. Her inhaler sat next to her pencil case, never far away. Quote 7. Becca's face lit up. "Can we get the one with extra cheese?" "Absolutely not," Lana said from the couch, not even looking up. "All that grease and dairy will trigger her asthma. Get her a salad." "She's 13, Lana. She needs more than rabbit food. She needs to learn healthy habits, unlike some people in this house." That was Lana's favorite game, little digs disguised as concern. I was 40 pounds heavier than when we met, sure, but I worked a physical job and ate like a normal human being. Lana survived on protein shakes and whatever trendy diet her Instagram influencers were pushing that week. I ordered pizza anyway. Extra cheese for Becca, pepperoni for me, and a Caesar salad for the queen of the castle. When I got back, Lana was in the shower, getting ready for another quote 13, with her friend Viv. Quote 14, Becca said quietly as we ate our pizza at the kitchen table. Quote 15. The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd been asking myself the same thing for months, watching my wife treat my daughter like an inconvenience, a reminder that I came with baggage. "She likes you fine, sweetheart. She's just focused on other things right now." She told Mrs. Patterson at the grocery store that I'm not really her responsibility. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. When did she say that? Last week. I was looking at the ice cream, and Mrs. Patterson asked if I was excited about starting high school next year. Lana said she didn't really keep track of my school stuff because I'm not her responsibility. I wanted to march upstairs and confront Lana right then, but Becca looked so small and hurt that I just reached over and squeezed her hand. "You are absolutely my responsibility, and I love having you as my responsibility. Don't ever forget that." Lana came downstairs 20 minutes later, dressed like she was heading to a nightclub instead of dinner with her married friend. Tight black dress, heels that could double as weapons, and enough perfume to choke a horse. "Don't wait up," she said, grabbing her purse. "Viv's going through a rough patch with her marriage. I might be out late." She was out until 3 in the morning. I know because I couldn't sleep, lying there thinking about what Becca had told me. When Lana finally stumbled in, reeking of wine and cigarettes, she mumbled something about Viv being, quote, 23, and passed out on top of the covers. The next morning, she was up early, back to her perfect routine. Green smoothie, yoga mat rolled out in the living room, posting inspirational quotes about us, quote, 24 and, quote, 25. That's when I found the tablet. Lana had left it on the kitchen counter, still logged into her messaging apps. I wasn't snooping, at least that's what I told myself. I was just moving it to plug in my phone charger when a notification popped up. Derek, can't wait to see you tonight. Wear that black dress again. I opened the message thread, and there it was, months of flirting, planning secret meetups, and intimate details that made my stomach turn. Derek Hunt, some muscle-bound trainer from her gym, had been texting my wife like they were teenagers, sneaking around behind their parents' backs. Lana, quote, 27. Derek, quote, 28. Lana, quote, 29. I scrolled through weeks of messages, each one like a knife twist. My wife complaining about our, quote, 30 life, about being, quote, 31 with someone else's child, about wanting excitement and passion. Derek eating it up, telling her she deserved better, that she was too beautiful to waste away in suburbia. The worst part wasn't even the affair, it was how casually she dismissed Becca. Quote 32. Like my daughter was some inconvenience she'd been forced to tolerate. I took screenshots of everything, my hands shaking with rage. Then I carefully placed the tablet back where I'd found it and went to work, my mind racing with possibilities. Mel Rodriguez, my best friend and former firefighting partner, took one look at me when I walked into his bar that afternoon and poured me a double whiskey without being asked. Quote 30, he said. Quote 34. I showed him the screenshots. Mel read through them, his expression growing darker with each message. Quote 35. Quote 36. Mel nodded grimly. Quote 37. Quote 38. I spent the rest of the afternoon at Mel's bar planning my next move. By the time I went home, I had a strategy. Lana wanted to play games, fine. But she was about to learn that I didn't play to lose. The beauty of being a fire inspector is that you learn to be methodical. You don't just rush into a burning building, you assess the situation, identify the hazards, and plan your approach. Same principle applies to dismantling a cheating wife's life. I started with the finances. Lana had always been careless with money, assuming I'd handle the boring stuff like bills and budgets while she focused on living her best life. She had no idea how much was in our accounts, what our monthly expenses were, or even which credit cards were in whose name. Tuesday morning, after she left for her yoga class, I transferred half of our joint savings into a new account she didn't know about. Perfectly legal. It was my money, too. Then I called the credit card companies and removed her as an authorized user on my cards. The ones in her name. I made sure they were maxed out with cash advances that went straight into my new account. Quote 40. The customer service rep said when I called about the third card. Quote 41, quote 42, I said. Quote 43, separation. The word felt strange coming out of my mouth, but it was the truth. We were separated. I just hadn't told Lana yet. By Wednesday, her cards were declining at her favorite coffee shop. She called me at work, furious. Trent, there's something wrong with our credit cards. They're all being declined. That's weird, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Maybe there's fraud protection kicking in. You've been spending a lot lately. I have not been spending a lot. I bought a few workout outfits and had lunch with Viv yesterday. That's hardly breaking the bank. Lunch with Viv. Right. According to her text messages with Derek, she'd actually spent the afternoon at his apartment while I was at work and Becca was at school. Quote 48. I lied. Quote 49. The silence on the other end was deafening. Quote 50. Quote 50 wa. Another pause. Quote 52. She hung up, and I smiled for the first time in days, let her sweat a little. That evening, Lana was waiting for me with her laptop open, bank statements spread across the kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. Quote, 50 through, quote, 54, quote, 55. I sat down across from her, keeping my expression concerned. Quote, 56, quote, 57, quote, 58. Lana's face was getting red, the way it always did when she was frustrated. Don't patronize me. I know something's wrong. Maybe you should be more careful about who you trust, I said quietly. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I'm just saying, if money's missing, maybe someone you know has access to our information. I let that hang in the air while I got a beer from the fridge. Lana stared at me, trying to figure out if I was accusing her of something or just being obtuse. I'm going to call the bank in the morning, she said finally. Good idea. I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it. Of course, when she called the bank, they'd tell her exactly what happened. Her husband had legally moved money from their joint account, but that would take time, and time was what I needed. Thursday night was Lana's usual girls' night with Viv, which, according to her texts, was actually another rendezvous with Derek. She spent an hour getting ready, trying on 3 different outfits before settling on a red dress that barely covered her thighs. Don't wait up, she said, kissing my cheek like the dutiful wife. Viv's really struggling with her marriage. I might be out late helping her through this. That's nice of you, I said, being there for a friend in need. She left at 7:30. At 8:15, I was parked outside Derek's apartment complex, watching her red dress disappear through his front door. Derek Hunt lived in one of those modern complexes with a gym and a pool that attracted young professionals who thought they were too good for the suburbs. His silver Mustang was parked in spot 247, detailed and gleaming under the parking lot lights. I'd brought a bag of supplies from work, nothing dangerous, just some tools of the trade. Expanding foam, the kind we use to seal gaps in buildings. Sugar, which I'd learned from a buddy in the police department, would turn gasoline into a thick syrup that wouldn't flow through fuel lines. The beauty of Derek's Mustang was that it was his pride and joy. He posted pictures of it constantly on social media, talked about it like it was his child. Destroying it would hurt him more than a punch to the face. I worked quickly and quietly. Sugar in the gas tank, expanding foam in the exhaust pipe, and for good measure, a small hole in one of his tires. Not enough to cause a blowout, just enough to leave him stranded. As I worked, I could see the glow of candles through Derek's apartment window. My wife was up there, probably telling him how unhappy she was, how she deserved better than her boring husband and his difficult stepdaughter. When I was finished, I left a note under his windshield wiper. From the husband who inspects fires. Next time, check under your hood. Then I went home and waited. Lana stumbled in at 2:30, reeking of wine and Derek's cologne. She was humming some song, happy and satisfied in a way she never was after spending an evening with me. Quote 71. I asked from the kitchen table where I'd been sitting with a cup of coffee and my laptop. Lana jumped, not expecting me to be awake. Oh, you scared me. She's better. We talk through a lot of things. That's good. Marriage problems can be really tough. Yeah, they can be. She avoided my eyes, gathering her purse and shoes. I'm exhausted. Going to bed. Sleep well. You've had a long night. Friday morning, Derek's car wouldn't start. I know because Lana got a frantic phone call at 7:30 while she was making her morning smoothie. Hello? Oh, hi, Derek. What? Your car won't... That's terrible. Did you call a mechanic? I pretended to read the newspaper while listening to her side of the conversation. A note? What kind of note? That's so strange. Who would do something like that? Her eyes found mine across the kitchen, and I saw the first flicker of real fear. I don't know, Derek. Maybe it was just random vandalism. These things happen. But her voice was shaking, and when she hung up, her hands were trembling. Everything okay? I asked casually. Derek's car was vandalized last night. Someone put something in his gas tank and left a threatening note. That's awful. Did he call the police? I don't think so. He doesn't want to make a big deal out of it. Of course he didn't. Derek was married too, according to the background check I'd run on him. His wife Sarah worked as a nurse at the hospital and had no idea her husband was spending his evenings with married women. Well, I hope he figures it out, I said. Karma has a funny way of catching up with people who make bad choices. Lana stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was starting to put the pieces together, but she wasn't sure enough to confront me directly. Quote, 86, she said. Quote, 87. Quote, 88. But as I left for work, I could see her through the window, pacing the living room with her phone pressed to her ear. She was probably warning Derek, telling him about my strange behavior, my cryptic comments. Let her warn him. The real show was just getting started. By Friday afternoon, Derek's Mustang was sitting in Tony's auto repair with a blown engine and a repair estimate that made grown men weep. Sugar in the gas tank is an old wives' tale. It doesn't actually damage engines. But sugar combined with corn syrup and left to crystallize overnight? That's a different story entirely. I know this because Derek called Lana 6 times during her afternoon dance class, and she was stupid enough to answer on speakerphone while I was in the next room. $3,000, Lana. $3,000 to replace the entire fuel system. Keep your voice down, she hissed. I told you Trent's been acting strange. What if he what? Your husband's a fire inspector, not some kind of criminal mastermind. I almost laughed out loud at that. Derek clearly didn't understand that fire inspectors spend their days figuring out how things burn, break, and fail. We're professional problem solvers and problem creators when the situation calls for it. The note mentioned fires, Lana said. That can't be a coincidence. It's probably just some random psycho. These things happen. Derek, listen to me. Trent knows something. I can feel it. Then maybe we should cool things down for a while, take a break until... No! Lana's voice was sharp with panic. Quote, 99. Quote, 100. Quote, 101. Lana's voice went cold. I thought you were separated. Silence. Beautiful, damning silence. Derek? You told me you were getting divorced. I am. I will be. It's complicated. Complicated how? Sarah doesn't know yet. I was waiting for the right time to tell her. More silence. Then Lana's voice, small and hurt. Quote 107. Quote 108. But the damage was done. I could hear it in Lana's voice, the realization that she wasn't Derek's great love story. She was just another side piece in his collection. I have to go, she said quietly. I need to think. She hung up, and I heard her footsteps on the stairs, slow and defeated. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered Becca sitting at the kitchen table, asking why Lana didn't like her. I remembered the text messages calling my daughter. Quote, Vevan. The sympathy evaporated like morning dew. That evening, Lana barely spoke during dinner. She picked at her salad while Becca and I shared a pizza, lost in her own thoughts. When Becca asked about weekend plans, Lana just shrugged. Quote, 1-2. Becca suggested hopefully. Quote, 1-1-3. Quote, 1-1-14, Lana said, without looking up. Quote, 1-15. Quote, 16. The hurt on my daughter's face was like a physical blow. Becca's asthma always got worse when she was upset, and I could hear the slight wheeze starting in her breathing. Quote, 117, I said gently. Quote, 118. After Becca left the room, I turned to Lana. Quote, 119. Quote, 120. Quote, 121. Quote, 122. Quote, 123. Lana's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with anger. Don't start with me, Trent, not tonight. Or what? You'll go crying to Derek? Oh wait, turns out Derek's got his own wife to worry about. The color drained from Lana's face. Quote, 126. Quote, We stared at each other across the kitchen table, the pretense finally dropping. Lana's perfect mask was slipping, showing the calculating woman underneath. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Long enough. Are you going to divorce me? That depends. Are you going to keep lying to me? Lana straightened in her chair, some of her old defiance returning. I'm not happy, Trent. I haven't been happy for a long time. So that gives you the right to cheat? To treat Becca like garbage? Becca isn't my daughter. She's my daughter, and when you married me, you knew she came with the deal. I thought I could handle it. I thought things would be different. Different how? You thought she'd disappear? You thought I'd choose you over her? Lana didn't answer, but her silence was answer enough. Quote, 138, I said quietly. Quote, 139. Quote, 140. Quote, 141. Quote, 142. Lana stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Quote, 43. Quote, 144. Quote, 145. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the screenshots I'd taken. Her own words, telling Derek how bored she was, how she felt trapped with someone else's kid. Lana's face went white. Quote, 147. Quote, 148. Quote, 149. Quote, 150. She had no answer for that. Instead, she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Quote, 151. Quote, 152. Quote, 153. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Upstairs, I could hear Becca coughing, her asthma triggered by the stress and shouting. I found her in her room, using her inhaler and trying not to cry. Quote, 154. Quote, 155. She asked between puffs of medication. Quote, 156. Quote, 157. I sat down on her bed and pulled her into a hug. Quote, 158, some quote, 159, so quote, 160. Becca leaned against me, her breathing slowly returning to normal. Quote, 161, quote, 162. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, and I thought about the months ahead. Divorce proceedings, custody arrangements, dividing assets. It was going to be messy and expensive and emotionally draining. But looking at my daughter, seeing her relief that she wouldn't have to tiptoe around Lana's moods anymore, I knew I was doing the right thing. Lana wanted her freedom. She was about to get more than she bargained for. Lana moved in with Viv temporarily, which lasted exactly 4 days before Viv's husband put his foot down. Apparently, having a cheating wife crying on your couch and bad-mouthing marriage in front of your kids isn't great for domestic harmony. She ended up in a studio apartment across town, the kind of place college students rent when their parents cut them off. 1 room, a kitchenette, and a bathroom, smaller than our walk-in closet. The monthly rent was more than our mortgage payment, but it was all she could afford on her part-time dance instructor salary. I know this because our neighbor, Mrs. Haddock, had become my unofficial intelligence network. Word travels fast in suburbia, especially when it involves scandal and public humiliation. Quote 163. Mrs. Haddock told me over the fence while I was grilling burgers for dinner. Quote 164. Quote 165. Quote 166. The whole neighborhood. That was interesting. Quote 167. Mrs. Haddock leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Quote 168. I tried to look sympathetic instead of satisfied. Quote 169. Quote 170. Mrs. Haddock was right about consequences. Lana's dance classes were getting canceled left and right as parents found other instructors for their children. Her Instagram posts about new beginnings and finding yourself were getting fewer and fewer likes. Even Viv had stopped commenting, probably under orders from her husband. But the real consequences were just beginning. Derek's wife, Sarah, found out about the affair 3 weeks after his car was vandalized. Not from me, I'm not that vindictive. She found out because Derek was stupid enough to use their joint credit card to pay for the hotel room where he and Lana had been meeting. Sarah Hunt was not the kind of woman who suffered in silence. She was a trauma nurse who'd spent 15 years dealing with emergencies and didn't have patience for drama or lies. When she discovered her husband's infidelity, she didn't cry or beg or try to work things out. She hired the most ruthless divorce attorney in the county and took Derek for everything he was worth. I learned this from Mel, who heard it from his cousin who worked at the courthouse. Derek was facing alimony payments that would cripple him financially, and Sarah was demanding half of everything, including his precious gym membership and his tools of the trade. Turns out, Derek's got a pattern, Mel told me over beers at his bar. Sarah's lawyer found evidence of at least 2 other affairs. Your wife wasn't even his first side piece this year. Jesus. Gets better. Sarah's filing a civil suit against Lana for alienation of affection. Apparently, it's still legal in this state. What does that mean? It means Lana could be on the hook for damages. Sarah's claiming emotional distress, therapy costs, loss of consortium, the whole 9 yards. I whistled low. How much are we talking? Could be anywhere from 50 to 200,000 depending on what the jury decides. $200,000. Lana didn't have $200 in her checking account, let alone 200,000. Her part-time dance classes brought in maybe $1,500 a month on a good month, and she'd been losing students steadily since word of the affair got out. There's more, Mel continued. Sarah's also going after Derek's assets, including that apartment he was renting. Turns out it was in both their names, and she's forcing the sale. So Derek's losing his love nest? Derek's losing everything. His wife, his home, his car, and probably his job once his boss finds out he's been using the gym's facilities for his extracurricular activities. I shook my head, trying to process it all. I almost feel sorry for the guy. Almost? He knew Lana was married, he knew about Becca, he made his choices. Speaking of choices, how's the divorce proceeding? My lawyer says it should be straightforward. Lana's not contesting anything, she just wants it over with. No alimony, no claim on the house, minimal division of assets. Smart of her. She doesn't have much choice. Her lawyer probably told her that adultery doesn't play well in family court, especially when there's evidence of neglecting a minor child. That evidence was extensive. I'd documented every instance of Lana dismissing Becca's needs, every time she'd prioritized her own wants over my daughter's well-being. The text messages where she called Becca "not my problem" were just the tip of the iceberg. The final hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in late October. I took the day off work and wore my best suit, the one I'd gotten married in, ironically. Lana showed up looking thin and tired, her designer clothes hanging loose on her frame. Her lawyer was a young guy, fresh out of law school, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. My lawyer, Margaret Bishop, was a seasoned family court veteran with silver hair and steel in her spine. Your Honor, Ms. Bishop began, my client is seeking dissolution of marriage on grounds of adultery and abandonment. We have extensive documentation of the defendant's extramarital affair and her neglect of the minor child in the household. She laid out the case methodically. The text messages, the financial records showing money spent on hotels and gifts for Derek, witness statements from neighbors about Lana's treatment of Becca. Lana's lawyer tried to mount a defense, claiming his client was unhappy in the marriage and seeking emotional fulfillment elsewhere. It was a weak argument that fell apart when Ms. Bishop introduced evidence of Lana's statements about Becca being, quote, 195, quote, 196. Ms. Bishop said, quote, 197. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked at Lana with obvious disapproval. Quote, 198. Lana stood slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. Quote, 199. Quote, 200. It was over in less than an hour, 30 minutes to dissolve 2 years of marriage and send Lana back to the life she'd had before she met me. As we left the courthouse, Lana caught up with me in the parking lot. Trent, wait. I turned around, curious to hear what she had to say. I know you hate me, but I want you to know that I never meant to hurt Becca. I wasn't ready to be a mother. You were never going to be ready. I said quietly. Because being a mother isn't about being ready. It's about showing up anyway. I know that now. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're still making excuses. Lana's eyes filled with tears. Quote 207. I thought about Becca, asking why Lana didn't like her. I thought about all the nights my daughter had gone to bed feeling unwanted and unwelcome in her own home. No, I said finally. It's not enough. Because you didn't just hurt me, Lana. You hurt a child who never did anything wrong except exist. And that's something I can never forgive. I walked away, leaving her standing alone in the courthouse parking lot. Through my rearview mirror, I could see her crying, finally understanding the full weight of her choices. 6 months later, Sarah Hunt won her civil suit against Lana. The jury awarded her $120,000 in damages, money Lana didn't have and would probably never have. She filed for bankruptcy and moved back in with her parents in another state. Derek lost his job, his apartment, and most of his assets in the divorce. Last I heard, he was working at a big box store and living with a roommate, trying to rebuild his life from scratch. Becca and I moved on. We sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a smaller place closer to her school. She joined the drama club and made new friends, kids who didn't know about the messy divorce or the stepmother who'd treated her like an inconvenience. One evening, as we were making dinner together in our new kitchen, Becca looked up from the salad she was preparing. Quote 210. I considered the question carefully. Quote 2:7. Quote 2:12. She said, smiling. Quote 213. Smart kid. She was right. I did get lonely sometimes. But I'd learned the difference between being alone and being with the wrong person. Being alone was temporary. Being with someone who didn't value your family was a special kind of hell. As for Lana, I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she was working at a chain restaurant in her hometown, serving tables and trying to save money to pay off her legal debts. Her Instagram account had been deleted, her dreams of being a social media influencer buried under the weight of her choices. Some people might say I was too harsh, that I destroyed her life over a moment of weakness. But it wasn't a moment. It was months of calculated deception and cruelty. And it wasn't just about the affair. It was about how she treated an innocent child who'd already lost her mother. Lana had wanted excitement, passion, a life free from responsibility. She got exactly what she asked for. Sometimes the best way to put out a fire is to let the whole damn thing burn to the ground and start over with something better.